Welcome to the SImple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a cafe au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 62nd episode of the SImple Sophisticate. We are about to step into fall here in a few days, and I started thinking about this idea of keeping a routine that still allows us to enjoy as much of the pleasures of summer or a leisurely schedule as we can, as well as being efficient. And I was also incorporating a request from a reader that I will share in a minute. And so I came up with a list of 17 simple one-and-done decisions that we can make in our everyday lives that will allow our minds to be freed up, basically, to make the best decisions on those issues that are more complex, more demanding of us taking time to really sort through the options. So today's episode is titled, Why Not Simplify Your Choices? And I'd like to start off with a quote from J.K. Rowling. She states, "It is our choices that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities." Certainly a quote to think about. And since choices are the focal point of today's episode, I want to talk about that. So it's our choices that show who we really are. Let's discuss that for a moment. Just as our muscles can become fatigued, so too can our minds. And so when we are bombarded with endless choices each day, much like using a smartphone, if we use it excessively, the battery becomes drained and it's unable to function as we need it by the time the day ends. Or if we use it uber excessively, it can die early on in the day when we desperately need it to finish our workday and even into the evening when we're communicating with family and friends and organizing our last few hours of the day. Our mind is the same way. If we zap its energy early on in the morning, early on in the day, we are not allowing it to perform at its best when we get to the end of that duration of what we need when we need it to perform. Because we do need to perform at its best all day. But how do we do that? That's really the question. And that's what we're going to try to solve in a few small, simple ways. Barry Schwartz, he is the best-selling author of the book, The Paradox of Choice, Why More is Actually Less, gives a simple piece of advice and simply states, choose less and feel better. In other words, often our lack of planning, preparation, and truly knowing what we want can be the obstacle that is standing in the way of a more content and fulfilling life. Interesting food for thought. So today, I'd like to share a list of daily decisions that can be one-and-done choices that don't tax our minds, all the while ensuring we are living our best and most healthy life. Because the most important choice, as Schwartz points out, is knowing what is worth hemming and hawing about and what isn't. If we can accurately discern which decisions fall where, we can conserve our necessary energies for the decisions that require it and not increase the angst or the stress in our life over decisions that should not be that complicated. But oftentimes we do get in our own way. So today we're going to try to clean that up because I know we can. Today's post, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, was prompted by a request from a reader after reading a Petit Plaisir from a few weeks ago about monochromatic bouquets. A simple choice that doesn't involve contemplation once we know which colors look best in our homes, but most importantly, which colors make us happy. And the good news is there are many other simple decisions we can default to which will make our lives smoother and allow our minds to be primed for those difficult questions when they arrive. Let's get started. Number 1, a simple wardrobe. President Barack Obama has been quoted endlessly since his interview in Vanity Fair 3 years ago about his decision to wear a navy suit nearly every day. As we all would imagine, the President of the United States, or for any country, president of any country, has more significant decisions to make than what to wear. And while none of us are the president, we too have decisions that are far more pressing and influential on our overall happiness than what we wear. Now, don't get me wrong. What I wear is one of my most beloved hobbies. I mean, I talk about fashion all the time on the Simply Luxurious Life and here on the SImple Sophisticate. It's a form of self-expression. It's an art. It's a craft that takes time. It is also something that is constantly changing, keeping us on our toes as our bodies and lives change with each passing year. But this is precisely why I love having a capsule wardrobe. If we adhere to a particular color palette, mine is navy, black, white, and gray with touches of pink or green for cool undertones, and purchase quality items and fewer of them because they'll last, we are simplifying our choices. We have options that mix and match with everything else in our closet. We're making the decision process of what we wear easier. And that, again, is our goal, to simplify the decision making. So number 1 is simplify our wardrobes. Number 2 is return to trusted brands and designers. Trends and labels are a waste of time and money because you will regularly spend money each season keeping up with everyone else. Wear what works well with your body, your lifestyle, and your budget. Once you find a brand that cuts clothing that seems to be made for your body, become a loyal customer. The decision making is then left out once you know that it will fit. And you can shop online, which saves you time and often money with all the different promo codes and sales that you can wait for. You can also rest assured that no matter when you purchase this item, that when it arrives, it will allow you to look your best. And this is the case for me when it comes to the jeans I wear, now the t-shirts I wear, which I shared last week in episode 61, DVF wrap dresses, and so many other brands that I instinctively go to because I know they work for me, my body type, and my lifestyle. This does take time, but it is worth the investigation because it will pay off. It will be a life changer. So you can focus on more pressing situations. Again, we're not saying clothing's not important. We're just saying that it is an introduction to who you are. It isn't necessarily who you are if you're not necessarily in the fashion industry. All right. Number 2 is return to trusted brands and designers. Number 3 is to eat the same breakfast. It is imperative to simplify our morning routines, but that doesn't mean we can't do a handful of different things. It just means we need to adhere to the same things, which are simple yet powerful decisions that will set the tone for the day, that don't drain our minds for work that lies ahead. Design a breakfast that is delicious, healthy, and something that will maintain your energy well past 10 a.m. or longer. When an item such as eggs is run out in your fridge, when you have the last egg, immediately put on your grocery list to shop for so that you know what to go buy at the grocery store at the end of the day or the next week whenever you do your grocery shopping. The key is whatever these decisions are that we may spend too much time contemplating over in the morning, simplify them, make them the same every day, knowing that they are the best decision for you. So it's a default. It's a default and you don't waste energy thinking about it. I've talked about this many times on the blog and I'll share it one more time because many of you have found the podcast before you visit the blog. So I want to share with you my breakfast. In all honesty, this has been the same for 4 or 5 years and I love it. I honestly look forward to it every morning. And now, of course, there's always special occasions on the weekend or when I'm traveling that I'll change it up. But I always have steel oats with honey and sliced almonds and raisins. And I always have one over easy egg. That's it. That's all I have. And then I have my hot water with lemon and tea as I go to work, my green tea. It's very simple. It keeps me energized throughout the day. I very rarely need a snack to get me between breakfast and lunch. And it fits the bill. And I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think about it. It's huge. It's very simple, but can make a big difference. So number 3 is eat the same breakfast. Number 4 is to establish default choices. In episode number 50 of the SImple Sophisticate, Why Not Design a Happy Life, I included a point about defaults. Defaults are in our lives for a reason, whether on our computer, determining which home screen pops up when we turn on the machine, or with our default passwords that are saved and we don't have to think about them. They make life simpler, but only if they aid in creating the life that we desire. Look over defaults that you have right now. Are they helping or hurting the culture that you're trying to create as you begin to live simply luxuriously? Are you keeping the fridge stocked with healthy options or junk? Is your phone by your bed at night or charging in another room so you can have a restful night's sleep? You have more control over the decisions you have to make and the actual decisions you are making. Choose wisely and your life will reward you. And you won't have to waste energy thinking about it. You'll just, oh, there's some grapes. I'm going to nibble on those instead of Oreos. All right. Number 4, establish default choices. Number 5 is to create a simple everyday dinner menu. There's something that I've been wanting to do for a while in the blog, and I haven't created the in-depth version yet, but here's an overview, and this is why I want to do it, is precisely because of this particular episode. I want to give us simple options we don't have to think about, makes it easy, yada, yada, yada. So each Sunday and sometimes Saturday, I jaunt off to complete my weekly grocery shopping, and I love this, Erin. I absolutely adore it. Last weekend, I guess 2 weekends ago, I shared an image on my Instagram feed of my weekly ritual to the grocery store. It's like going Christmas shopping for me. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy this time. My weekly grocery list is pretty much the same every week, which means I eat, you guessed it, pretty much the same thing every week, but not necessarily. To many, this may sound dull, but when I'm busy, knowing that I have ingredients at home to cook that are delicious yet fulfilling leaves me feeling good about my health. And that is a huge peace of mind. Just because I have the same ingredients doesn't mean I have to have the same thing. There are all different ways if you buy the right ingredients to make all sorts of different recipes. And that's the fun part too. That's what I love about this. And so every year I have a new recipe that I've added to the mix, and I barely change my grocery shopping list, which is kind of fun. What I've always wanted to do specifically, though, is to create simple weekday recipes that mix and match, similar to a capsule wardrobe, somewhat like a fail-safe and delicious modern woman's home cook menu. And while I don't have the detailed version yet, as I said, I have a general overview that I'd like to share with you. So between Monday and Friday, or whatever your work week is, when you come home and you're exhausted, but you know you have to be fueled for the next day, and you just want to make sure you know you have the ingredients, you don't have to make an extra trip to the grocery store, I make sure that each night I'm eating a vegetable, and it's typically either spinach, either I steam it with garlic, lemon, and olive oil, or I'll toss it with a homemade vinaigrette. Another vegetable that I personally love are roasted vegetables, specifically broccoli. But there, you can roast any vegetable. Very simple, 20 minutes at 375 degrees. Put some olive oil on it, salt and pepper, toss it around, and put it in the oven. So easy, so simple. And I also love green beans a la Julia Child. And that recipe is on the Simply Luxurious Life recipe page, as well as so many other things. But that one's also quite easy. You are boiling the beans for 10 minutes until they're al dente. And then you put them in a saucepan at a high heat, and then you just toss them with about 3 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons, depending on how many servings you're serving, and a few teaspoons of lemon juice, fresh lemon juice, and voila, you have a fantastic, flavorful vegetable side dish. So each night I have a vegetable that I just talked about that there. And the next thing is I always have a protein. I am not a vegetarian, but I also try to eat lean meat. So either grilled chicken or grilled salmon or shrimp scampi or Parmesan chicken, or if I'm feeling I want to treat myself, I'll have sole meuniere, which I have the recipe on today's show notes, so you can get to that as well. So simple. All of these are so simple. You can have dinner done and ready to go in less than 30 minutes. It's that simple. And then sometimes I'll add one slice, a nice healthy slice of artisan bread if I picked it up from the bakery that week. And I'll have some dipping olive oil and balsamic vinegar to go along with that. I will usually have water with my dinner just because I always need to be rehydrated. But sometimes I will toss in a glass of red wine. So that is the typical puzzle piece that I work with during the work week. And I think when we do that, again, we simplify our decisions during that busy week and we make it more enjoyable. We are more apt to cook because we have ingredients in the fridge. We don't have to go out and get them. And we know that it'll be flavorful and we know it'll be healthy. Again, this is just a basic idea of how simple your grocery shopping can be, yet how satisfying and simple your meal can be as well. On the same lines, number 6 has to do with lunch. Depending upon what your day requires you to do, whether you work at home or at an office or on the road, the key again is to have a designated meal or meals you always default to during the week. The weekends or special occasions or evenings out are when we can kind of allow ourselves the decision-making of all the different options that are out there that may be complicated, but they're also rewarding and delicious. And that's cool. That's a great idea. But for those everyday lunches, that you need to eat, you need to refuel, and you want to make sure you refuel properly so you don't snack endlessly because you're not feeling satiated and full, choose those defaults that work for you and your waistline and your lifestyle and just stick to them, whatever they are. Everyone's going to do it differently. So it'll be similar to my dinner menu, but it'll obviously be a little bit different because it's lunch and depends on where you are when you're going to be eating. So number 6 is create a default lunch or a few lunches that you always adhere to. Number 7 is to have a drink of choice. Now, I'm not saying to only drink one thing, but keep it simple and know your preferred tea or coffee. Know what you typically will choose when dining casually. For me, it really is water with lemon. And what you prefer when alcohol is something that you've chosen to drink for the evening. Maybe you just stick to wine like me, or maybe there's one particular mixed drink that's your go-to and you know that 1 or 2 and then you're done, whatever it is. This will not only help your mind, but it will also help your budget. So number 7 is to have a drink of choice. Number 8 is to have a workout you love. Pretend you're being interviewed by a magazine for a moment. You know those profile interviews that we always see in magazines of the celebrities or the people that we're like, whoa, I wish I could have a body like that person. And then you always read these interviews and you're like, how does she do it? How does she do it? And it always seems that it's more simplified in their description. But either way, there usually is a routine that they stick to. Whether it's accurate or not, it's usually something the same. Everyone likes to do different things based on their personality and based on where they live. So what would you say if you were interviewed? I can remember reading interviews of Princess Diana, so years and years ago, the 1990s, when I was in high school, and thinking, how does she know what works for her? How does she know that she likes hiking and skiing? How does she know that those are workouts? And how does she make sure that they are workouts? And I'm not sure about those two. That's just what pops into my head. I could be incorrect. But after a while, you do know what works for you and what you enjoy doing that is actually effective for your health. For me, it's walking and now Pilates. I have finally gotten back into Pilates and I'm loving it. I've missed it for so long. And then I always have my strength exercises and in the summer months and spring, paddleboarding. I have my favorite walking trails and paths. And while I do mix them up based on how much time I have and how hard I want to push myself, my workout routine is written in ink in my planner. And it is an appointment like I would go to the doctor and not miss. Make the decision to work out simple. Make sure it's something that you enjoy and that shows the results that you're seeking. And therefore, you're looking forward to it. Often it's a great mind release. It's a great distressor. And the key is, I think, for most of us to stick to it is something we enjoy. Whether you have dogs like me or not, whatever it is that nudges you out the door every day will make a big difference in your overall attitude, lifestyle, and health. Most importantly, your health. All right, so number 8 is to have a workout you love. Number 9, we're going to talk about hairstyle and products. Once you have a cut that works with your face and your lifestyle, take the time to learn how to style it at home and then stick to it. The same is true for hair products. But before I get into the hair products, it always amazes me how we get into routine of how we blow dry our hair, style our hair, and how it really becomes muscle memory with our hands and how we handle all of our gadgets. I say this because last month I had to find a new hairdresser, having moved to Bend, and my old hairdresser was in Walla Walla. And I was just like, oh, this is going to be difficult. Well, I was very fortunate. I found a fantastic hairdresser, and I had her walk me through specifically how to do a certain style. And I've been trying to do it for over a month now. And I can do it, but it is so hard for my muscle memory because it's retraining what I have been doing for years. And so once I get that into my muscle memory, I know it's going to be easier, but it is difficult and it is taxing on the mind. So I know it sounds silly and perhaps superficial, but it's not. How we present ourselves makes a huge difference on our mood, our confidence, and how people perceive us. So whatever it is that works for you, your hairstyle, what looks best for you, take the time to learn how to do it. Have patience with yourself as you try to figure it out. And then as it becomes ingrained in your muscle memory, you'll be glad you did it because it will become much easier every single day. Now, with regards to hair products, it may take you some time to find the products that work for your type of hair. Keep searching until you do find the right products. And you'll know when you do, whether it's the shine you're looking for, the body, whatever it is. When you find it, stick to it. And once it's out, know that you're going to go replace it immediately, or order it a week or two ahead of time before you know it's going to run out. Whatever it is, that'll keep your peace of mind when you go into the bathroom to style your hair, but it would also ease your mind because you don't have to try to find something new, and that just becomes frustrating as well. We're going to take a quick 1-minute intermission, and then we're going to return, and I have 8 more simple everyday choices that will lighten your mind up so that it is primed and ready to go for those big decisions we all have to make here and there. Welcome back. Number 10 is a life changer, and I'm so excited to share this one with you because it really has shown itself in my life to be a positive shift. So number 10, the simple decision you can make that will totally change your everyday life is your emotional reactions. I've realized recently that we can become conditioned to react emotionally a certain way to things regardless of who we are with. It wasn't until I moved to Bend, however, not knowing anyone, and saw something I wanted to change. I found myself, after having been protective and defensive with my responses in certain situations due to past hurts, responding the same way here with people who had given me no reason to act this way. I realized I could either project trust, warmth, optimism, and kindness, or I could put out into the world what I didn't want, what I am fearful will happen. So my challenge to you and to myself is to shift our emotional reactions to a default that projects what we want to see more of in our lives. Quickly and truly, I have seen an immediate positive response in my life. People will respond in kind or leave you alone because they know they cannot get the negative or snarky response from you that they had expected. You don't want to be around those people anyway. Let them go. A simple decision such as changing your default emotional reactions can have a huge difference in our overall quality of life. So number 10, establish beneficial emotional reactions. Number 11 is to schedule a buffer. I'm talking about scheduling appointments here. So when you're scheduling appointments, always provide at least a 15 or 30-minute buffer. Now, this does not include travel time to get from one appointment to the next. Why? As much as we want meetings to end on time and traffic to run smoothly, it doesn't always follow our wishes, as we know. So by implementing a buffer, you'll reduce stress, chaos, and rush decisions because when you're late, you're often having to apologize when you first walk in the door and you're not focusing on why you're there and presenting the best self that you want to present. So number 11 is schedule a buffer. Number 12, we're talking nail polish and makeup. Some more beauty products here. Now, if you're a beauty product lover, you may not want this suggestion in your life, but as someone who wants her toes to look nice, but wishes they would magically trim and polish themselves every 2 weeks, I stick to the same color year round. You heard it here. I use a soft blush tone nude shade from OPI, and then I forget about it. The same thing goes for my makeup. Bobbi Brown and NARS is all I use. I'm sure there are many other fabulous brands that offer the same quality, but these work for me, and so it's all I need. And so I just make that decision to choose these products, replace them when they run out, and forget about it. It's a simple decision that doesn't bog my brain down in the morning when I'm doing my makeup. So number 12, nail polish and makeup. Keep it simple. Number 13 has to do with from whom you seek advice. The cliched saying goes that, quote, advice is what we seek when we already know the answer, but wish we didn't. But I also find it true that we seek out the people we think will give us the advice we want to hear. Such is not always the best idea. In other words, don't be asking for medical advice from someone who has no experience in medicine. I know that's a real obvious one, but another one, don't seek relationship advice from someone who has never been in your situation. While we might want comfort from certain people, regardless of their experience or their expertise, advice, sound advice, is an entirely different ballgame. Knowing who to talk to, whether it's a real estate question, a romantic dilemma, or a career question, will save you much frustration when you are left alone to make the actual decision about how to proceed. So number 13 has to do with from whom you seek advice. Number 14 has to do with savings. We're talking financial planning here. Those emergency funds, retirement, things like that. Defaults will also be a game changer when it comes to finances. Set your checking to automatically deduct a certain amount for your savings account and retirement account so you don't have to remember to do so. Period. Done. Keep it simple. 14 has to do with automate our savings. 15 has to do with money as well, specifically how we handle debt. Depending upon the financial situation you are in, set a default decision and payment plan that works for your budget and you no longer have to wonder about it. Whether you have no debt at all and you pay it off in full every month or are currently paying down debt, create a schedule and a response that works when purchasing new items pops up as an option. Can you afford it? Can you pay it off in a month? Or is this going to exceed your budget? Simple answer, simple decision. Should you or shouldn't you? Done. Number 15, make it simple when it comes to how you handle debt. Number 16 has to do with when we wake up and when we turn into bed. Not only is a regular sleep schedule best for our bodies, but it does wonders for our minds. Setting our body clock takes time, but once we remain consistent, even for a week, we'll see that our body wants to wake up at a certain time and turn in at a certain time as well. Any of you who ever have traveled across multiple time zones and felt jet lagged know that a body's sleep cycle is a powerful internal clock, and it does take time to set, but it does stay set pretty well. And if we respect that, it's amazing the positive results that we can reap from that, whether it be our mind being refreshed, our bodies being well-tuned, therefore being able to perform at our best in all arenas. 16 has to do with waking up and turning in. And last but not least, back to why this episode came to be. Number 17 has to do with the flowers you buy. As I mentioned in a recent Petit Plaisir, choosing a monochromatic bouquet is a simple way to make a bold and stylish statement. And when it comes to purchasing flowers in general, I have learned that I tend to only buy specific types of flowers, either for their beauty and color or their ability to last. Such purchases always make me happy and pleased when I walk through my front door, and I don't tend to buy unless certain flowers are available, which saves my budget in the long run. Just like your go-to drinks, have a go-to flower or flowers that you will fork over cold, hard cash for. If your favorites aren't available, save your pennies. So number 17 has to do with simple decisions when it comes to the flowers you buy. In many ways, today's episode is the second part in designing a happy life. Hopefully, what you'll discover as you put these simple decisions into play is that your decision-making process is clearer on the items that need your full attention and contemplation of all the options. In so doing, you cultivate, design, in other words, a very lovely, simply luxurious life indeed. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. And you can find all of the posts I referenced, as well as any of the other information on today's show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 62. Now, stay tuned for a Petit Plaisir that you might just want to put on your weekly dinner menu. It's simple and it's delicious. I'll see you in just a few. One of the things that I love to do on the weekends is take my dogs for a couple hours hike, get outside, turn off the phone. The phone's not even with me, and just relax. And I tune into some of my favorite podcasts. And one of my favorite podcasts is something I've actually shared here on the SImple Sophisticate. It's the Splendid Table. It's all about food. And by the time I'm done walking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. No, but seriously, I often, and such was the case 2 weeks ago, finish that episode, and I will come home and I will make a list of recipes I want to try. And I have not been disappointed with any of the recipes I've tried so far. They have always been absolutely fantastic. 2 weeks ago, I was listening to an episode, and it was all about heirloom tomatoes. And as summer comes to a close this week and fall begins, I have a recipe to share with you that after having made it this past weekend, I highly recommend and know you will enjoy if you are a lover of tomatoes. So it is called Fresh Heirloom Tomato Soup with Cream, and I have adapted it from the Splendid Table's recipe, and I will share their website on the show notes as well as my recipe and an image of my soup. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw this recipe's image on Friday. As I came home from the week, I got into the kitchen and I took out my 5 fresh heirlooms that I had waiting to be turned into this recipe. And it was one of the simplest recipes I've ever made that offer the most decadent flavor. In fact, I'm actually having a bowl of soup tonight for dinner because I have so much of it and I have lunch prepared throughout the week, I'm sure, and it smells amazing. If you want to fill your house with luscious flavors of fall summer coming to an end, but also beginning of fall, this is the recipe to start. And it is, again, so simple. The recipe in its entirety is on today's show notes, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast62. But it really comes down to flavor. And there is a little kick of spice. And I'm not a big spice person, but you do put a few hot red pepper flakes in it. And there is a subtle heat. You can obviously put more if you want more. But for me, who does not like heat, I did like the warmth that just a pinch of hot red pepper flakes provided. Again, you don't have to dice up these tomatoes that much. You just simply rough chop them, tear the basil leaves, chop up the onions. And then once you let it simmer for about 20 or 30 minutes, all these ingredients, there's a few more that are listed here, chicken broth and tomato paste and garlic, then you let it cool. And then if you have an immersion blender or a traditional blender or a food processor, you blend it up 2/3 of it to your thickness. Now, I really like mine chunky, so you'll see that in the image. You'll be able to see that, but you can make it as fine, as pureed as you'd like, depending on your preference. But here is what makes it amazing. You don't put the cream in while you're actually making this soup. You actually save the cream until you serve it, and you just add about a tablespoon, a very generous tablespoon, to each bowl of soup and stir it in. I also have to make sure that I have a slice of artisan bread, and I get my favorite bread from the Village Baker, the strata bread, and it just soaks up that moisture. And it's like, you don't even need a spoon if you don't want a spoon, but I don't eat that much bread. I have to watch my calories. So I do have a spoon there too. And it's just lovely. It's absolutely lovely. So the entire recipe will be on the blog. It will take you all of 15 minutes to chop everything up and get it in the pot. You let it simmer for 20 to 30 minutes, and then you blend it up and it's done. So it really does not take a lot of time, and you'll have soup for days if you want. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable, and in this case, delicious. Tune in at the end of each Monday's podcast, where I'll recommend a book, a film, a recipe, or from time to time, introduce you to an expert who offers insight into how to live simply luxuriously. Anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. Thank you for tuning in to the SImple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, stop by the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up the book, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonjour!